Darren Kittleson here. It's a beautiful Friday afternoon here in southern Wisconsin. It's actually the very first Friday of May, and it's gorgeous outside, 80-some degrees. And I wanted to just share one last story of one of the things that happened this week that I just didn't want to let go without having it being said. And that is, I have an opportunity actually to teach a course called the Real Estate Negotiating Expert (RENE). It's the brand new certification from the National Association of Realtors. And I had a chance to teach the course to about 100 agents a couple weeks ago here in Wisconsin. And one of the things we talk about in this course, and it's a conversation around negotiation, is that as a buyer's agent, where a buyer client has signed an agreement with me to represent their best interests in the purchase of real estate, I really owe it to that client to do what's in their best interest at all points of time. And one of the traditional things that happens in a lot of markets, and I really believe this comes from a time when we didn't represent buyers in transactions, was that after you show a property to a buyer, the listing agent would reach out to you and say, well, give me some feedback. What did your buyer think? What are your thoughts about the property? That type of thing. And if you think about it, in a negotiation, the client I represent, and in this example, let's say it's the buyer, if I were to call the other party and tell them what the buyer's thoughts were about the property and what they're thinking about the property, what it might possibly do is tip their hand when it comes time for negotiation. And so the training, what we're training our students to do is when they get that phone call from an agent representing a seller, is to say, you know what, because I represent the buyer, I'm not at liberty to share any of that information. Thank you for letting us do the showing. And that's really it. Now, because traditionally we give feedback, many agents who represent sellers get upset with that. And please understand, though, that that would be potentially jeopardizing the agent who represents the buyer's negotiating position for their buyer. So this happened, and I called the agent because she said twice this week I've had agents tell me that. And she goes, they've been very nice. And the last one I just asked, I go, where did you hear this? And they said, well, I took the Real Estate Negotiating Expert course. In that course, Darren Kittleson, the instructor, talked about that and said that's how we're supposed to answer that question. So first off, Lisa, this is one of my agents who's in the course. I just want to say thank you so much for taking what we train and putting it into practice. So that's the first thing I just wanted to share, is that Lisa really did that, and she did it in a very polite way. In fact, the agent who called me wasn't really upset. She was just trying to understand where that came from. So I love it when what we train gets put into practice. Second, for those of you in the industry and those of you who do a lot of listings, please understand you're more than likely going to have to change your dialogue with your sellers to something like this. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I don't know about the last time you sold a house, what it was like, although I want to share with you some things that are maybe slightly different now. The last time you sold a home, how long ago was that? And they might say 7, 8, 10 years ago. That's about the average now. You say, at that point in time, it was probably customary that after every showing, the listing agent you had called the agent working with the buyer and got some sort of feedback. Did that happen back then? And they'll go, yeah, I think we remember that. Well, I just want to set the stage so that you're not disappointed. In today's world, more than likely, the agent showing your property will be an agent whose loyalty lies to the buyer because the buyer has signed an agreement that, in essence, makes that buyer that agent's client. Much like when you sign this listing agreement with me tonight, I'm becoming your agent and you're my client. And so I owe you a lot of different fiduciary duties, one of them being to negotiate on your behalf. And so because that is similar with that agent working with a buyer, that when it comes time to share feedback from a showing, if that agent were to share that feedback, it could jeopardize the position of that buyer when it comes time to negotiation. Does that make sense? Now, keep in mind, I'm still, as a listing agent, I'm going to ask that question because many times agents who aren't well trained will give me that feedback, and that could put us in a stronger position. So I want to do that for you. Yet understand that when we work with really well-trained professional agents, they're probably going to say, I can't give you that feedback. It would jeopardize the position for my client. So that's really it. So I wanted to share that with you as we wrap the week up, because in all of this, what we're doing is we're raising the bar of professionalism in our industry. And here's what I truly believe. When we've raised that bar so high that everybody is an incredibly well-trained, incredibly conscientious, incredibly professional real estate agent, everything's going to get better. All boats rise. So thanks for giving me about 4 minutes or 5 minutes, maybe in this case, for this little rant. My name's Darren Kittleson. Have an awesome weekend. Thanks for watching this.